Did Arundhati walk in front of Vasishtha any time in the past? This question, discussed by Jayashree Saranathan in the light of a concept called the Epoch of Arundhati, propounded by Mr Nilesh Nilkanth Oak, is being presented here. Arundhati and Vasishtha were real-life couple who were elevated into the celestial sphere called the Saptarishi Mandala. Commonly known as the Big Dipper, this constellation has 7 bright stars, identified with 7 rishis of the Vedic culture. The counting starts from our right, from Kratu, and this list is as per Varahamihira. Starting from Kratu, the 6th star is Mysore, identified as Vasishtha. This is closely followed by a small star known as Alcor, identified with Arundhati. The beauty of this binary is such that Arundhati seems to be following Vasishtha for all ages in the past. The meaning of Arundhati given in Mahabharata in the words of Arundhati herself in a context establishes what this relationship between the 2 stars Alcor and Mysore is about. Arundhati has said that she always stayed by her husband, that is Vasishtha, and held the earth jointly with him, and she always inclined Vasishtha towards her, and as such she is known as Arundhati. The term Manonurundhati in this verse has been described by Sanskrit scholars as holding on to without slipping. What does it mean? It means she is clinging on to Vasishtha, by which it is meant she has never gone in front of him or crossed his path ever. The very meaning of the word Arundhati can be traced to the root word Rud, which means obstruct. From Rud, Runde, meaning to obstruct, to prevent, to hold back, to cross, etc. So, Rundhati is one who obstructs, whereas Arundhati is one who doesn't obstruct. So, by this we come to know that the very symbolism, the very etymology of Arundhati is such that she is one who has never obstructed by going ahead or crossing the path of Vasishtha. Had she deviated from her path, the Vedic sages could have spotted some other star as Arundhati, because we do come across a narration in Mahabharata that says that the wives of the 6 other rishis once deviated from their path and were substituted with the 6 Kritika stars, which continue to be firm till date. This symbolism continues even today in our society at the time of Vedic marriages. At the time of marriage, the bride looks up at the Arundhati star and makes a vow, saying that she will be the 8th Pativrata after Arundhati and the 6 Kritika stars by being firm and being a Pativrata following her husband. Such being the symbolism of Arundhati, we come across for the first time and the only time in the scriptures that she has changed from her position observed by none other than Veda Vyasa in Mahabharata. Veda Vyasa says that he was seeing Arundhati keeping her husband Vasishtha at her back. She, who is celebrated over all the 3 worlds and is applauded by the sadhus and the righteous people, had kept her husband at her back. What does it mean? What did he see? Did he see a change in the position of the two stars? If so, why didn't he do the corrective action? That of removing her from the symbolism and finding a substitute for her. But nothing of that kind had happened, making us think that it was not an alarming thing lasting for ages. Looking at Vasishtha and Arundhati as how they appear today, we are led to believe that he had found a kind of change or a confused position in their alignment. And he narrates that this is a nimitta. A nimitta, as defined by scholars, is an unstable first cause giving rise to a stable effect. By this very meaning, it is conveyed, and also by having said that Arundhati had kept her husband at her back as a nimitta, we can conclude that what he had seen was only an unstable appearance. There is an element of instability and non-permanency in a nimitta. And this Arundhati observation was a nimitta recorded by the sage Veda Vyasa. Such being the wisdom of the sages handed out to us, we are surprised to come across a concept called the Epoch of Arundhati, propounded by Mr Nilesh Nilkanth Oak in his book When Did the Mahabharata War Happen? The Mystery of Arundhati. Working on the observation on Arundhati given by Veda Vyasa, Mr Nilesh Oak has sought to demystify the mystery by saying that what is given as a nimitta of Arundhati having put her husband at her back had gone on for not just a few seconds or minutes, but for 6,500 years at a stretch. He this period as the Epoch of Arundhati. This is the illustration given by him in support of his theory. We are seeing a circle in the middle. He has named it as precision of equinoxes, while in reality it is axial precision circle. This is Polaris, the current northern pole star. That is, our Earth's axis is pointing towards this part of the sky where Polaris is situated. He also shows Vega, that is Abhijit, on the other side of the circle and placed at 12,000 BCE. He is also showing us Vasishtha and Arundhati on the other side of the precision circle. He joins them with a line that cut the circle at two places wherein he has given dates. Let me explain this. This is the actual simulated version of that illustration. What you are seeing here is simulated from Stellarium software, wherein you are seeing at the precision circle in the middle, Polaris at the top, that is a current northern pole star, and the Saptarishi Mandala lying outside the precision circle. I have circled Arundhati and Vasishtha in this Saptarishi Mandala. Here I want to show you another star also, that is Thuban, about which I will be talking later. But you can see that being placed at just less than 2 degrees away from the precision circle, Thuban was the pole star at some time in the past. Now I am showing you Abhijit, just away from the precision circle, but was considered as a Dhruva nakshatra at some time in the past, which happened to be around 12,000 BCE. Now, Mr Nilesh Oak has joined Vasishtha and Arundhati and extended that line here. And the extent, that is the two extremities where it is cutting the circle, is marked by him. And now I am going to superimpose his illustration over this so that viewers can understand better. You can see the line cutting the circle at 11,091 BC and 4,508 BC. In another illustration of the same, he is clearly giving us the time period, that is at B, where the line touches or crosses the precision circle. It was 11,091 BCE, and at A it was 4,508 BCE. He says the arc BXA represents a time period when Arundhati was walking ahead of Vasishtha. This is the path of Vasishtha and the path of Arundhati. And the X, this is 5561 BCE, the year of Nilesh Oak's Mahabharata war date. And on that year, he is showing like this. The line stretching from that X crossing across Arundhati shows that Arundhati was in front of Vasishtha. That is, she crossed the meridian before Vasishtha, says Mr Nilesh Oak. I am here showing the simulations given by him for the two extreme ends of that point B and point A, in which Arundhati and Vasishtha cross the meridian together. The time period between these two is known as Epoch of Arundhati according to him, running for nearly 6,500 years. Since Vyasa had seen or had said that Arundhati went ahead of Vasishtha, he postulates that Mahabharata war must have happened within these two extremities, within this Epoch of Arundhati. And he says that Mahabharata could not have happened after 4,508 BCE. And at 5,561 BCE, he says Arundhati crossed Vasishtha ahead. On the left, the simulation is given by Mr Nilesh Oak, where you see the green color line, which is the meridian. The meridian is a line, imaginary line joining the northern pole and the southern pole at a location. Arundhati has crossed the meridian 30 seconds before Vasishtha, according to him, on the first day of the Mahabharata war in the year 5561 BC. Is Nilesh Oak right in this theory? This is a question. A nimitta mentioned by Vyasa is being described by him as having gone for nearly 6,500 years, and within that period he has located an year which is clearly 2,000 years earlier than the traditional date of Mahabharata war. Therefore, the need comes for us to discuss this point and then find out whether he is true in his postulation. Here I am showing an observer, the meridian, and then the Arundhati star crossing the meridian, followed by Vasishtha within 30 seconds. After crossing the meridian, what was the path of Arundhati? If she had gone in the straight path like this and followed by Vasishtha again in a straight path like this, definitely we can say that Arundhati has walked ahead of Vasishtha. Explaining this, Mr Nilesh Oak is producing this figure very often in the social media. This is a running race in which one person is in the lead, saying, like the person in the lead, running ahead of others, Arundhati also had gone ahead of others, had gone ahead of Vasishtha. Is it true? Let us see. Observer, meridian, Arundhati, Vasishtha. Did Arundhati go in a straight path? No, she went in a circular path. Similarly, Vasishtha also went in a circular path. The reason being, they were moving around the northern pole star in the year 5561 BCE, that is Nilesh Oak's year of Mahabharata. The time was 2:56 am, that is well past midnight. He has expected Vyasa to have stayed awake and then watched Arundhati going in front of Vasishtha in the circular path. So after she has crossed, what happened? Who went ahead? Shall we see that? Now I am tracing that path after 45 degrees, that is after 3 hours. This is where Arundhati and Vasishtha were. That is at 5:56 am, when Vyasa must have been awake and must have watched the sky and the Saptarishis. But what did he see? He must have seen Vasishtha ahead of Arundhati. Arundhati is clearly behind Vasishtha in this configuration. Similarly, I am tracing the path further. This is how it was. And here also, Vasishtha was ahead of Arundhati. There is no way that one could have said that Vasishtha was behind Arundhati by looking at this configuration. Then what did Vyasa see? In a video presented by Mr Nilesh Oak, he has made this handmade sketch. The 2 lines and the 2 arrow marks are made by me to indicate something. The lines show that this is not the precision of equinox circle but the axial circle. The arrow marks are showing the orbits drawn by Mr Nilesh Oak himself. He has drawn the orbit not in straight line but in circular path. Let me show this clearly. This is the precision circle drawn by him. He has placed the Mahabharata date at 5561 BCE. Arundhati here, Vasishtha here, and now he has gone ahead with drawing the orbit for Arundhati like this. He has drawn just a small part of it, but that part shows that it was circular. And for Vasishtha, he has drawn a full circle, and I have shown it here like this. After this position, where had Arundhati and Vasishtha gone in this configuration? Again, where were they? A person looking at them, what he would say? He would see that Vasishtha was ahead of Arundhati. Similarly, when they have moved further on in that orbit, what would the viewer will see? He would see that Vasishtha was still ahead of Arundhati. Now, let us take a look at the position of Arundhati and Vasishtha on Mr Nilesh Oak's date of Mahabharata war in the Stellarium simulator. The time is 2:25 am and Alcor, that is Arundhati, and Miser, that is Vasishtha, are about to cross the meridian, which is seen as a green color line in the middle. The alignment of these 2 stars appear to be slightly tilted, with Arundhati seeming to be in the lead. At the time of crossing the meridian, this is how the constellation appeared. I am giving here the view from Hastinapur on the first day of Mahabharata war in Mr Nilesh Oak's scheme. The circle in the middle is not the precision circle but the circumpolar circle. I have produced this to show what stars were inside the circle and were circulating around the northern pole star. The Saptarishi Mandala appears in an upright position while it was crossing the meridian, and I have circled Arundhati and Vasishtha and enlarged them and placed them in the middle only for illustrative purpose to show how they appeared. They appeared to cross the meridian simultaneously, and the time was 2:58 a.m. Now, after they have crossed the meridian, what happened? Within 2 hours, we can see that Mysore has taken the lead. That is, Arundhati is slightly behind. That is, that alignment has tilted, by which Vasishtha was seen in front of Arundhati and not vice versa. Let me show the enlarged version. Before crossing the meridian, this was how they looked. At the time of crossing the meridian, like this. And after crossing the meridian, definitely one will say that Vasishtha had gone ahead of Arundhati. The angle of Arundhati Vasishtha alignment has changed within 2 hours in Nilesh Oak's date of Mahabharata. Not only in this year, in other years too, the alignment has changed. For example, in the year 7000 BCE, the two stars were almost simultaneously crossing the meridian. But within 5 hours, who has appeared in front? In the picture at your left, you see the circumpolar circle in blue color and the bigger Vasishtha clearly in front of Arundhati. This is on the same night after 5 hours. Can any star watcher in 7000 BCE say that Arundhati had walked ahead of Vasishtha? Is this what Veda Vyasa had meant when he said that Arundhati had kept her husband at the back? Let me show another simulation from Stellaria. I have simulated how these constellations appeared within 24 hours of a day. On the first day of Mahabharata war in Nilesh Oak's scheme, you can see the Saptarishis rising from, it's going in the anti-clockwise direction. Only Arundhati and Vasishtha seem to have risen first. But what happened afterwards? At the time of crossing the meridian, the constellation was upright. Then it started falling down. It looked as though the entire constellation has done a somersault in such a way that what was above looked below, and what was in the front looked behind, and what was at the back looked to be going in the front. So how could have someone said that Arundhati went ahead of Vasishtha? By looking at this, in different parts of the day, at different parts of the night, different alignments have appeared. Now, let me explain this phenomenon using an illustration. Observer, meridian, Saptarishi Mandala. This is how it appeared on the first day of Mahabharata war in Mr Nilesh Oak's scheme. I have shown Arundhati as a red star, and it seems to be in front of Vasishtha in this upright position. Now I am going to rotate this figure by 90 degrees. Now how it looks? It looks as though Vasishtha is in front of Arundhati. Again, after 6 hours, like this, and another after 6 hours, like this. So a person watching the constellations, watching Arundhati and Vasishtha in different parts of the night, what he would have thought? At some time Arundhati in front, and at other times Vasishtha at the front. Is this what Veda Vyasa had meant? When I took up this issue with an astro dynamicist he did the calculation for Arundhati and Vasishtha using different coordinates necessary for the calculation and presented his results in this table. This table shows that Arundhati and Vasishtha were in circumpolarity right from 6500 BCE onwards, in which case it is not correct to say that one went ahead of the other. This is not like a running race in a circular path where there is a beginning and an end. Here, in circumpolarity in the celestial sphere, there is no beginning and there is no end, and there is no way to say that one went ahead of the other. This astrodynamicist tested for the rest of the epoch period also, when the stars were in non-circumpolarity, by rising in the east and setting in the west. For those years also, he calculated and showed that that Arundhati, though she rose first in the east, did not go ahead of Vasishtha, for only Vasishtha was found to have set first in all the years of the non-circumpolarity of the Epoch of Arundhati of Mr Nilesh Oak. Between 7500 BCE and 800 CE, both Arundhati and Vasishtha were in circumpolarity. That means it is not correct to say that one of them went ahead of the other. But before 7500 BCE and starting from 17,000 BCE, we can see the phenomenon of Arundhati rising first in the eastern horizon before Vasishtha, but not setting before Vasishtha in the western horizon. Only Vasishtha had set in the western horizon ahead of Arundhati, like in a race that Mr Nilesh Oak often quotes. Though they had been going across the sky with Arundhati having risen first, at the end of the race, Arundhati did not reach the end point first. Only Vasishtha had reached the end point ahead of Arundhati. This is exactly the symbolism for a pativrata told by our scriptures. A pativrata is one who rises before her husband but goes to sleep only after her husband has gone to sleep. In the same way, Arundhati was found to have risen first, that is before Vasishtha, and had gone to sleep or set in the western horizon after Vasishtha had set in the horizon. Having seen this rare phenomenon of a kind of pativrata symbolized in the star couple, our ancients have elevated the star couple, equating them with the real life couple Arundhati and Vasishtha. Therefore, the Epoch of Arundhati is non-existent. Mr Nilesh Oak has spread the canvas of the epoch in which he has made the sketch of his date of Mahabharata war. When the canvas itself is non-existent, dysfunctional, then this Mahabharata war is also non-existent, untenable for that date. Not only his Mahabharata date, his Ramayana date is also found debunked by the same illustration produced by him. Let me show how. This is the illustration made by Mr Nilesh Oak, and I am showing the simulated version for the same here, which I earlier discussed. You are seeing the precession cycle in the middle, and the Polaris and Abhijit at two ends. Mr. Nilesh Oak has placed his Mahabharata date here within that circle, that is that arc of epoch, which is now proved non-existent. He has played Ramayana date at the place or at a time when Abhijit was the pole star, that is around 12,000 BCE. He has zeroed in on this date based on a verse from Kishkinda Kanda, wherein it is stated that Brahma Rashi and Paramarishis were circulating around the Dhruva Nakshatra. The Paramarishis were the Saptarishis. Brahma Rashi was the other name for Abhijit. Mr. Nilesh Oak has interpreted this verse to mean that Abhijit was the Dhruva Nakshatra, and he has placed his Ramayana time at a time when Abhijit was the pole star, without fulfilling the other clause in the same verse that the Paramarishis must be circling around the Dhruva Nakshatra. Let us see whether the Saptarishis were circulating around Abhijit at that time. To show that, let me first show you the orbit of Arundhati and Vasishtha, or the Saptarishis, at a time when Thuban was the pole star, the northern pole star, and that represents the traditional date of Mahabharata. At that time, Arundhati Vasishtha were very close to the northern celestial pole, and people had seen them circulating the northern pole. Compared to that, the orbit of the Vasishtha Arundhati pair and the Saptarishis was a little larger in Nilesh Oak's date of Mahabharata, but yet some of the Saptarishis, and particularly Arundhati and Vasishtha, were seen within the circumpolar circle at the time that we have shown earlier. Look at the orbit here. Now I am going to show you the orbit of Vasishtha and Arundhati and the Saptarishis also when Abhijit was the pole star. Such a huge orbit. Look at the radius of that orbit. Very far away. Can anyone say that the Saptarishis, or even one of them, Paramarishis, it has been just mentioned as Paramarishis, so not all the 7 stars, maybe some of the stars, none of them could have been circulating Abhijit at that time. To prove this, let me show the orbit of these stars at the current times around the Polaris. Here the orbit is larger only, but not as large as the one that we find when Abhijit was the pole star. For a latitude like 13 degrees north, where Chennai is situated, the 2 stars, even the entire Saptarishi Mandala, is not circulating the Polaris currently. And Kishkinda is just a few degrees north of the Chennai latitude, that is around 15 to 16 degrees. So definitely, for a larger orbit like this, people in Kishkinda could not have seen the Saptarishis or even Arundhati and Vasishtha going round the Abhijit star. This shows that the date that Mr. Nilesh Oak has taken for Ramayana is not true. He has misinterpreted the verse that says that Abhijit also was circulating the Dhruva Nakshatra, and has said that Abhijit itself was the Dhruva Nakshatra. Now, having made Abhijit as a Dhruva Nakshatra of Ramayana times, he did not bother to show whether the Paramarishis or the Saptarishis were going around the northern celestial pole. They didn't go around at that time as his own illustration shows us. As per this illustration, Ramayana must have happened somewhere within the epoch period that he has shown, only when the Saptarishis and also Abhijit can be found to be circulating around the Dhruva Nakshatra. We are not going into that. Here we are only showing that his own illustration shows that his date of Ramayana is also not correct. So Mahabharata did not take place before 4508 BCE, which is falling inside the Epoch of Arundhati, which is found to be non-existent. Similarly, Ramayana did not take place any time before 11,091 BCE because Abhijit was not the pole star during Ramayana times. Then, where did Mr Nilesh Oak go wrong? Shall we look into that also? Mr Nilesh Oak worked on proper motion, declination and right ascension separately, and finally zeroed in on right ascension. But is he right on that? Let me show this figure wherein you can see the globe in the middle, the earth, and a larger globe around that with the longitudes and latitudes, which is nothing but the celestial sphere. On the globe, to identify a place, one needs two coordinates, latitudes and longitude. Suppose one wants to locate New Delhi on the globe, one needs to know both the latitude and longitude where they cut each other. Then only he can locate a place. Similarly, in the celestial sphere, to locate the star, one needs to know right ascension, which is nothing but a celestial representation of the longitude, and also declination, which is the celestial representation of the latitude. Using these two coordinates only, the star can be located at a place. Not only that, the observer's location also matters. The observer at Hastinapur will be at 30 degree north. At 30 degree north, the northern pole star will appear at 30 degrees from his horizon. Any star going within the radius of this 30 degrees will appear to be in circumpolarity. That means any star having more than 60 degrees declination will be in circumpolarity for a latitude of 30 degrees. For calculating whether the star goes ahead of the other, one should know right ascension, declination and also the latitude of the person, the observer. The astrodynamicists who did the mathematical calculation had taken all these three into consideration for the calculations to show whether Arundhati went ahead of Vasishtha. So, without knowing these two, particularly right ascension and declination, there is no point in talking about the star's position. So, Mr Nilesh Oak's idea of relying on right ascension alone is wrong. He must have taken into consideration both right ascension and declination and deduced the star's position. So what are his mistakes? His mistakes are, he has taken only right ascension and not in combination with the declination. Had he taken that into account, taken them together into account, he would have known that they were in circumpolarity at that time. And he did not check independently of it. In the event of not having known that they are in circumpolar movement, he must have checked independently on his own whether they were in circumpolar motion. He didn't do that. And he did not see beyond the small window of his simulator, and thereby he failed to track the complete path of the star. Nilesh Oak's research started and ended within this small window. He just wanted to see what he wanted to see, and just he was looking here and there, and then saw a place where he got what he wanted to see. He got it at the place of crossing the meridian. Then he thought this is everything and the research is over. But the path, the orbit of the two stars had a life even after crossing the meridian. That is what we have seen. However, the question remains, what did Vyasa see? He did report the sighting of Vasishtha at the back of Arundhati, but it was a temporary phenomenon, a nimitta, and not like the one that Mr Nilesh Oak has shown us. It was not a permanent phenomenon, not an astronomy observation, but it has a scientific explanation. How and why Arundhati appeared in front of Vasishtha, or rather, Arundhati kept her husband at her back, has been explained by me using scientific tools and astronomy observations of Mahabharata in my book Myth of the Epoch of Arundhati of Nilesh Nilkanth Oak. One can find other interesting information, including the defense of the traditional date of Mahabharata war using the astronomy observations of Mahabharata. One can get a very good insight into the events in this book, and for any queries you can contact me in these IDs. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation.